Hey, what's up guys, Austin here. Today I wanted to talk about something that I myself, and I'm sure any of you watching, are interested in, and that's Souls PvP. I'm aware that big YouTubers have already made videos like this. I just wanted to give my opinions, see if anyone else agrees with them. I also want to say up front that I love this game. All it has to offer on the PvP side of things is great. This is definitely in the running for one of my favorite open world games. But if we're looking at it purely from a PvP perspective, I have a few points as to why I think Elden Ring's PvP is inferior to its predecessors. These are in no particular order: poor invasion spawn points, hosts being AFK, invasions during bosses, bad PvP rewards, twinking, an over-reliance on spells to add nuance to combat, gimmick builds, invasion priority, and bad launch. We'll start with poor invasion spawn points. Invasions in the open world were not tested nearly enough, and as a result, players have this massive continent that they can run to every corner to in order to inconvenience the host and run away from them. This is a huge step back from Dark Souls 3, and I am not sure what went wrong here on From's part. I definitely understand that it would be frustrating to get invaded in the open world as a host, trying to make it to the next grace, only to get walled off and killed by the invader. However, the finger remedy that makes all multiplayer turned on can be turned on at will and turned on and off whenever you like, and does not decrease your stats like previous titles. This brings me into my next point about hosts being AFK. Hosts can use the Horse, Torrent, or Hand of Melania to get themselves into very hard to reach spots to where invaders cannot get to them. Couple this with the fact that hosts can actually do this on accident, since there are spirit spring jumps. You can elevate yourself hundreds of feet and then be invaded, only to get kicked off your horse with no way back onto it, and it to be impossible for an invader to get to you. And when you take into consideration that players can actually do this on purpose to try and farm runes, my only conclusion is that this was not play tested enough. My next point is invasions during bosses. The open world bosses are really awesome. Stepping out into Limgrave for the first time, seeing the Tree Sentinel, having a Gil give you a panic attack in the swamp, riding around and stumbling upon an open world boss is really something that From nailed this time around. But when it comes to multiplayer, they really shit the bed. I don't know why they allowed players to invade during open world bosses and abuse them to the extent that they can. I could excuse this if when you started the boss, it kicked the invader, like any Fogwall boss does, or it does in any of the previous games. But not only does it not do that, players can invade during your boss fight, regardless of how much HP is remaining on the boss. If you couple this with the fact that invaders can use bosses like meat shields to soak up as many hits and as much aggro as they want while they try and kill the boss, then I can only assume that this also was not tested enough. And yes, I am aware that bosses can also do damage to invaders, but the boss never even targets the invader, and that's hardly a compromise when you add up all of the things I just listed. My next point is bad PvP rewards. This is pretty self-explanatory. All I have to say on this is that they could have easily added a covenant system like in Dark Souls 3 or something similar. I mean, come on guys, it even goes with the lore of you becoming a hunter of Tarnished to Volcano Manor, going back after you've killed enough players, claiming your reward. But no, there's nothing like that at all. Outside of some pocket change and a rune arc, this is again a regression from previous titles. Twinking. Twinking's always been a problem with these games, and I don't understand how after 8 goes at this, that From is still shit the bed. Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls Remastered, Dark Souls 3, Dark Souls Scholar the First Sin, Demon Souls Remake, and now Elden Ring. That is 8 games in a row. Every single one of these games has busted PvP because of its twinking exploits. I'm excluding Bloodborne here because the only way to gain crazy gear in that one and really get overpowered and one-shot people is to farm a bunch of blood gems. And you still have to use the false step chalices, so those aren't really even an option. Elden Ring, however, has many ways to become much more powerful than the people that you're matched with. You can still acquire overpowered weapons, spells, armors, and on top of that have very close to the amount of healing without even having to kill any bosses. This is good from a PvE perspective, but not from a PvP. And I understand narrowing players by matching them to players with the exact same rune level, healing charges and weapon level. It hurts the lasting power of the game. But as the system already is now, I think that From's already doing that themselves. So the next thing I want to talk about is more like 2 points in one, which is gimmick builds and over-reliance on magic to bring nuance to combat. I would be confident in saying more than half or half of these people actively PvPing in Elden Ring have gimmick builds or cheese builds. These are like players using Bloodhound Step, using Stars of Ruin, just spamming it, spamming weapon arts like Rivers of Blood, Hand of Melania, one-shot builds, Madness, Spear Guys, Fingerprint, Shield Pokers. I'm in no way saying you have to go melee only, never use ranged attacks or weapon arts. I don't give a shit. You bought the game, play it however you want. My issue with this is build variety. Since you've seen one player using this certain type of cheese build, you've seen them all. This is what I meant earlier about From hurting their games with their lasting power. Why use strength weapons when bleed kills people twice as fast? Why use anything other than Stars of Ruin as a sorcerer? Why not have Bloodhound Step on every weapon when you can? The issue here is optimization, and the fact that everyone is so optimized that you're at a significant disadvantage if you want to use something different is what kills this game for me. The lasting power will not last because using fun and wacky builds to kill people that still actually work is not a viable way of having fun in Elden Ring. If they were going to make magic so much more overpowered than melee like in previous titles, I can't help but feel like something more than the guard counter needed to be added to melee combat to smooth out the balancing between builds, because as it stands, magic is way more overpowered. Invasion priority, oh god, invasion priority has never been a good thing in these games, in my opinion. It leads to people feeling like the game is too unfair, and then they start to exploit it. A good example of this is, remember fight clubs in Dark Souls 3 when someone would invade, try to crash the party, and inevitably 2 or 3 people start attacking said person, and they run away to the Black Knights and try to trigger all of them and run clear to Anor Londo. If From wants invasions to be like this from now on, like an unfair test of the player's skill on the invader's part, that's fine. But the problem here is a regular invader. It's balancing. A regular invader and weapon level appropriate, in healing appropriate, for the zone, will most likely get demolished if they aren't running something that tips the scale in an otherwise unfair way, like a cheese build. If you take into consideration that the fact that someone who's level 15 can summon their friend who is level 115, whose sole intent is to carry them through the game, killing all the invaders, enemies, and bosses, I'm led to think that invaders are getting shafted this time around, especially since all you get is a rune arc and some pocket change. Bad launch. This is my final thing, so I'll keep it short. I'm aware this is not just a problem with Elden Ring, it's a problem with the entire industry. But the reason I bring this up, however, is because Elden Ring launched unfinished, not only in its online, in its single player. This is very evident when you look at the game's servers, and they were terrible at launch. They were awful. You could not summon anyone, just unable to summon, unable to summon, unable to summon. The fact that they didn't scale arcane weapons properly when the game first launched, the fact that there was like insta-kill glitches, and the fact that they just recently patched in character quest lines. I mean, come on guys. The latency for PS4 just got to a state where I actually consider it even worth your time. Before it was so bad that it wasn't even worth your time in my opinion. You would just get killed randomly from something you couldn't even see. And it's crazy because Elden Ring launched completely unfinished. I mean, the Karian insta-kill phalanx glitch was in the game for like 2 months. I mean, did anyone give a shit about the NPC quest lines that they added? Because I know I certainly didn't. I myself already beat the game multiple times by the time that they actually decided to finish this game. Closing out, I want to say if you made it this long into the video, thank you. As well as state that if you enjoy all of Elden Ring's PvP, this is not to detract from any of that. I know I myself have had varying levels of enjoyment with this game. This video is simply to throw my opinions out there and see what some of you think as well. I also want to state again that this is one of the best games I've ever played, and the PvE experience this game provided was astounding the first go, even if it did drag a little towards the end. But that's a topic for possibly another video. But again, thank you, and see you next time.